Horizon Homosuji and this is Warring States, Japan, Sengoku Jidai, Warrior Monks of Hongan-ji and Hiei. I don't know how to pronounce that. Extra History Part 3 by the channel Extra Credits. Yeah, apparently this video is going to feature warrior monks in this civil war of Japan. The last of what, 150 years? How the fuck a civil war lasts for 150 years? I mean, just process that. A few years, decade, 2 decades, 150 years. Damn, that's just ridiculous. Like the fighting over fighting, clans are fighting constantly. There are constant wars on the battlefield. You know, any war can break out any time. Bloodshed. It's ridiculous. I'm surprised how Japan left with any, population after that. But 150 years, that's a long time. Yeah, so far, Oda, that's a simple name so I can remember that. He's been the dominant one so far, the Oda clan. And, he's been, really smart and lucky too, because he's been against really ridiculous odds and he won. And now he somehow has the shogun under his hand because he got an excuse to, I guess, help a shogun out, a guy who has the claim to shogun or something. So they just went to Kyoto and, put him as the shogun. Now I guess he's his puppet or something. So yeah, we're going to see how the monks comes into play. But yeah. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, check out the reaction. There's a link in the description. Check out the cards of the different playlists like History, Inter-Historian, Holy Sakashi Production, CGP Great, Herezu, Kazakazar in a nutshell. Yeah, that's what this one.
Remember how last time we left off with Oda Nobunaga seizing Kyoto and installing Ashikaga Yoshiaki as shogun? Well, you see, there turned out to be one small problem with that. Yoshiaki actually thought he was going to get to be shogun. Nobunaga, on the other hand, was pretty sure that if anybody was going to be ruling Japan, it was going to be Nobunaga.
Yeah, that shogun guy basically had the mentality like, if I have the rightful claim, of course I'm going to be shogun. I mean, people always honor things. He forgot the one main rule of, of any time. It doesn't matter how back of a time you go, one rule is always applied. Anybody with the bigger muscle, with the bigger army, always rules, regardless of what. So if Oda has the all power and army and everything like that, of course he's gonna be the one who rules.
So with this in mind, trouble started after a scant few months in Kyoto. Nobunaga made Yoshiaki send letters to all the surrounding daimyo, inviting them to take dinner with him. Unfortunately, Yoshiaki had already started to send out secret letters of his own to nearby clans, inviting them to come liberate Kyoto from the hands of the wicked usurper Nobunaga. So you can see how this dinner invitation might seem suspicious to some people. And the head of the Asakura, one of the powerful nearby clans, saw through this offer of an evening snack from Yoshiaki, realizing that Nobunaga was behind the whole thing, and decided it was a trap. Of course, because the invitation had technically been from Yoshiaki and not Nobunaga, when the Asakura refused, Nobunaga declared them traitors to the shogun and declared war on them. A bit much.
Yeah, that's something, right? If you're shogun under your hand, basically, it's always a win-win situation. They come to your dinner and you ambush them, kill them, you win. If they see through that and say refuses the dinner, they're like, oh, that's an insult to shogun, and they can go to war. So win-win either way.
Over a dinner party, but hey. And so it was on. Nobunaga marches his forces out of Kyoto to crush the rebellious Asakura. But to get to the Asakura lands, he has to march through Azai territory. If you're Nobunaga, you're thinking, of course, no problem. After all, if you remember from our last episode, Nobunaga's sister was married to the Lord of Azai. Womp womp. So yeah, of course, as soon as Nobunaga and Tokugawa's forces have gotten to Asakura territory, the Azai decide that, what the heck, they've known the Asakura for longer, now is a good time to revolt. So now Oda's forces are trapped between two powerful clans. The Azai have cut off their retreat to the rear, and the Asakura are in front of them. Their supply lines are in ruins, they're outnumbered. So what'd they do? Well, Nobunaga's first response was to fight everybody, but luckily his generals convinced him that they could split the army and...
I mean, you can't blame him, right? So far he's been so lucky, whether it's his brilliance or whatever, but he has been lucky. He's went against such a ridiculous odds and won every single time, regardless of what. So of course he's like, I can kill everybody.
safely slip away by the back roads. And here you've got to give Nobunaga credit. One of the reasons that he succeeded where so many others failed was that he was always playing to win.
Yeah,
he was willing to take a desperate gamble if it was the only chance he had, but he wasn't a man who acted rashly or out of temper. But oh man, let me tell you, he was pissed. He'd withdraw, but he was gonna kill his brother-in-law. No, literally, he was really going to kill his brother-in-law. But
Yeah.
it gets worse.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that is some ballsy moves from him, right? First of all, he's like, yeah, I married my sister to you, and this is how you repay me. And since all the things he has done, and knowing the shogun is under his hand, his brother-in-law, actually backstabbing like that, he has balls. But it's stupid to let him go alive, I guess. He should have just crossed him. Because if Oda goes back to his place, then that's it. That, his brother-in-law could be sure that, he's gonna attack now. He can't let that go.
The Oda column is sneaking through forest back roads, Nobunaga cursing loudly about the treacherous Azai, when suddenly there's a noise from one of the trees. A ninja, Sugitani Zenjubo, has been lying in wait for them. He fires his first shot from an arquebus, tosses it aside, and fires a second shot from another arquebus he had primed and ready. Both hit home. Nobunaga is thrown from his horse, chaos erupts, Sugitani Zenjubo flees, but his job wasn't done. Nobunaga stands up, both bullets having lodged themselves in his armor. And if you thought Nobunaga was mad before, oh boy. So, with an assassination
That animation was perfect, right? His red eyes. I think blood literally rushed to his eyes and his brain. He's like, I'm gonna kill everybody.
attempt behind him, Nobunaga makes it back to Kyoto, and over the next 2 months, he rallies his forces. Now, with Tokugawa and Hideyoshi at his side, it's time for him to return to Azai and teach them what it means to betray Oda Nobunaga. It is now July of 1570. The combined Tokugawa and Oda forces have marched into Azai land. They move to threaten one of the main Azai castles, but they're met at the Anegawa River by the combined armies of the Azai and the Asakura. The Azai line up on the east to face the Tokugawa forces, and the Asakura line up on the west to face the Oda. The stage is set for an epic... Wait, no, hold on. Nobunaga wants to switch it up first. The night before the battle, when he sees the Azai flags to the east, he switches his whole line around so his army is facing the Azai, while Tokugawa's handles the Asakura. Because nobody kills Nobunaga's brother-in-law, except Oda Nobunaga. So now, in the dim twilight hours of the morning, the battle begins.
Everyone's like, okay, it's time to attack. Oda's like, no, wait a minute, switch position. Like, what? No, switch position now. I'm gonna kill that asshole.
With samurai struggling in the knee-deep water of the Anegawa, steel ringing on steel, waters running red, Nobunaga's forces are barely able to hold their own, pushed back inch by the fury of the Azai assault. Enemy samurai almost reach Oda Nobunaga himself, only to be cut down at the last minute before they can deal the killing blow. But Ieyasu's forces are faring much better, and just as it looks as though the Oda forces might collapse, the Tokugawa push back the Asakura, and Ieyasu detaches a division to slam into the Azai flank. The Azai start to disintegrate. Nobunaga is saved, and the day is won. But the Oda forces are in too ragged a shape to pursue, and so they withdraw to Kyoto.
Wait a minute, I'm really bad with the names here, but isn't Tokugawa the same guy that shoe bearer or whatever he was, the assistant? Then he became the castle repairer. Then he basically conquered that area and he gave him the area. Is that the same guy? Because if he's that, then he's a really brilliant guy on the battlefield, right? Even Oda's getting his ass kicked while his army is really powerful here. Is that the same guy? I don't know.
Seeing the desperate shape the Oda troops are in, another clan, the Miyoshi, the clan that Nobunaga initially kicked out of Kyoto, decided it was time to get theirs back, and aligned themselves with the ikko-ikki, warrior monks who held the nearby temple fortress of Ishiyama Hongan-ji. Now, have you noticed how everyone's coming at Nobunaga piecemeal? If the Azai, the Asakura, the ikko-ikki, and the Miyoshi had all worked together, they could have crushed the Oda. But this is one of the key characteristics of the age. This whole period is a catalog of people living in a state of mutual distrust. This is why the Oda-Tokugawa alliance is so important. Having just one ally that he could consistently count on gave Oda Nobunaga an enormous advantage, and allowed him to mop up the rest of the clans one by one. Which brings us back to the Miyoshi and the ikko-ikki. The Miyoshi are sort of a historical
Yeah, so basically around this time, one thing's damn sure, everybody is paranoid, right? And rightly so, I guess. Because this is so chaotic after, all the shogunate break apart and civil war started, that every clan is afraid that anybody does anybody and, leaves their place vulnerable. Other guy will just swoop in and, that's it. I mean, they can't even trust each other. Even if they had some kind of a sign, some kind of treaty or something, like alliance or something, they know they're not going to honor it. As soon as they are in the weakened position, they're going to take their place and I guess swipe through their, entire kingdom or whatever. So this is really after a place where there are so many clans in places and every neighboring clan is afraid of another one. At that time, if 1 or 2 or even 3 clans combines, really strongly, that's it.
Footnote, but the ikko-ikki are something we've got to talk about. These guys were militant Buddhists, and when I say militant, I mean these guys were able to kick an entire samurai clan out of the Kaga province and just take it over for 100 years. To put that in perspective,
I guess, whenever there's some Hollywood movie, any movie, Chinese movie, Japanese movie, any type of movie, where they show these badass monks, they're just only few, but they're so badass they're like equal to an army or something. I guess all that thing comes from here, actually real event that happened. Actual badass monks who are really powerful, look at that.
this was the only province in all of Japan not to be ruled by samurai at that time. These guys scared the heck out of Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu. In fact, they were probably the biggest obstacle between Oda Nobunaga and unifying all of Japan. Luckily for Nobunaga and Ieyasu, these warrior monks were more of a loose coalition than a unified group, suffering from the same distrust and fragmentation that afflicted the rest of the country. Now, in this case, the warrior monks giving the Oda trouble were from the temple of Ishiyama Hongan-ji, a vast fortress complex at the mouth of the Yodo River. Nobunaga sallied out with 30,000 men to reduce the temple. He had to. You see, the thing about the ikko-ikki was that they weren't a clan. They didn't follow the same rules of territory. A samurai clan had its domain, and if anybody entered it, well, that meant war. But the ikko-ikki were monks, which meant that, sure, they had their province of Kaga, but they basically set up their temples wherever they pleased. After all, it's hard to stop your own peasants from building a nice, peaceful temple in your province. And this temple, Ishiyama Hongan-ji, was just south of Kyoto, where Osaka is today. These monks had been refusing to pay taxes, disrupting trade, and generally just being a nuisance for some time. Nobunaga couldn't have them deep in his territory while he tried to conquer Japan, and now that they'd allied with his enemies, well, it was time for all-out war. So Nobunaga raced south, and his 30,000 men surrounded the...
Yeah, see, the thing is, even though they're so badass monks, the way they're spread out and it's not concentrated in one place, and they are not the military soldiers in the end. Doesn't matter how badass they are. Numbers and just having the group mentality and the soldier mentality, the massive number is always going to overwhelm you. There's a reason why military army is so deadly against anything. Doesn't matter how badass of a monk you are, if you don't regroup and combine your forces and act like a military thing, then I guess someone like Oda will basically stomp you. Even though you become a nuisance over time, Oda will eventually stomp you, because Oda actually have real army, while you are just a monk, who spread out all over the place.
Temple. The order to attack was given. They tried to charge forward, but the marshy land around the temple dragged at them. They sunk into the tidal flats, weighed down by their heavy armor. Their feet, sucked down by the muddy ground, got trapped in pots that the monks had buried in the wet soil. Then, gun monks. Yes, 3,000 elite monk arquebusiers came to ruin Nobunaga's day. And Nobunaga learned...
3,000 is not bad, right? Because around this time, usually armies like 20,000, 30,000. In the first video, we saw how, I guess, Oda clan. Yeah, Oda clan basically defeated 25,000 with just 2,000, 2,500. So if the monks are so badass and they have gun monks, they're just 3,000. I guess they're still formidable, right? If they are that badass, they could still, take entire armies down.
What everybody else who had tried to dislodge the monks of Ishiyama Hongan-ji had learned. Ishiyama Hongan-ji was impregnable. For 11 more years, Nobunaga's men would camp around Ishiyama Hongan-ji, making it the longest siege in Japanese history. No castle defended by samurai, no daimyo's fortress ever held out as long as these peasant monks.
11 years.
But no sooner had Nobunaga's offensive against the Ishiyama Hongan-ji stalled than he learned that the Azai and the Asakura were back in it, coming after him with the warrior monks of Inryaku-ji. You see what I mean about Buddhist monks actually being Nobunaga's strongest opposition? Well, Inryaku-ji was a fortified monastery on top of Mount Hiei. Wait, Mount Hiei? Come on, this one's practically in Kyoto. That's it. Nobunaga bites his pride and makes a truce with the Azai and the Asakura. It's time to deal with some monks. Now, the story of Mount Hiei...
He just went to Azai. Look, man, I want to kill you so badly because you stabbed me, but those monks are way too much. They have to go, man. Let's sign a peace treaty for now until the monks are gone. Because they are way painful. Over a decade, we tried to seize them.
...is actually a tragic one. Nobunaga's learned from his experience at Ishiyama Hongan-ji. He wasn't going to try to assault one of these impregnable temples again. Instead, he sets his men to encircle the mountain, and then on his command, he had them light the tree line ablaze. As the fire roared up the mountain and started to consume the temple at its summit in Ryakuji, Oda Nobunaga gave the order to slaughter every man, woman, and child fleeing from the burning temple. 20,000 people died on that day, and all of Japan learned what kind of man Oda Nobunaga really is. In our next episode, things get grim for Tokugawa Ieyasu. And one of the most famous ninja in history enters our story.
I guess Oda just showed entire Japan that how ruthless and bloodthirsty he is. I guess that's gonna be really bad for him along the way, because alliances might break apart. People start to not trust him a lot, and it might be I don't know how this is gonna play. Is Oda going to one in the end who unifies the Japan and wins? If that's the case, that's something. But right now it feels like he's gonna go down path, I guess, from here. Up until now he was just winning. I don't know after this. But yeah, damn. Wait a minute, I thought there was just monks. How are there women and children in there? Well, that's not your average, common monk type of thing. They had women and children there apparently. Damn, that's just effed up though. I mean, killing monks is one thing. Women and children, he didn't have to do. That's a, Genghis Khan type of thing. I know lots of people, even, beyond Genghis Khan, lots of people used to do that. But still, that's just effed up. Kill monks, sure. Why kill women and children? That's just effed up. Alright, people, that was Warring States Japan, Sengoku Jidai, warrior monks of Hongan-ji and Hiei. I don't know. Yeah. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, check out the Rick Sunday. There's a link in the description. Check out the cards, please check out the end cards, and I'll see you next time.